In this video, I'm going to be attempting to build this rather simple looking CSS design, but the catch is I have to use the least amount of characters of code possible through a CSS battle. I've done tons of these CSS battles in the past focusing on speed, but in this one I'm going to be focusing on using some of the weird and esoteric things inside of CSS to create this design with the least amount of code possible, and it's definitely going to stretch my skills to the limit. Welcome back to Web Dev Simplified. My name is Kyle and my job is to simplify the web for you so you can start building your dream projects sooner. And to get started with this project, let's just delete everything that we have inside of there. Of course, we're going to need to have a style tag to do all of our different styling. And to get started, I first need to add some type of element to our page. So I'm just going to add a p tag to our page because that's essentially the least amount of characters that we can possibly use. Now I'm going to remove all the white space and stuff in a little bit, but I kind of want to talk about my high level overview of how I'm going to build this out. The very first thing I'm thinking about is having essentially an element that's going to have a background color and then a border, and that's going to take care of essentially this entire eyeball. I can do another background and border for this other eyeball, and then this single horizontal line here can be a div or a p tag or whatever. And the really great thing is I can do this p tag for this. I can do before and after for these if that's shorter in characters. So that gives me essentially one element that takes care of all of these. So let's come in here with a p tag, and I can say that my background is going to be white. Just like that. So we have that white background showing up for all of these. And then the next thing that I need to do is give it a width and a height. And again, I'll fix all the stuff to make it shorter on characters in a little bit. So we'll say that the height for this is going to be, let's say 20 pixels. And we'll say a width is going to be 100%, which I probably don't even need. And obviously I'm going to need to change my body to have a background color. So we'll say background, and we're going to copy that background over just like that. There we go. So at least I can see that element on my page and I can see it's definitely not the correct size. It needs to be quite a bit bigger. Let's give it 50 pixels. That actually looks like it's about the right size. And then we want to be able to center all of this different content inside of our page. So we'll just come in here with a display of flex, justify the content in the center. There we go. And we'll put our items, align items in the center as well. There we go. That's working just like we want it to do. And we can come in here with a width of 100 VW. Actually, I'll keep it at 100. Actually, I don't even need to have a width. Oh, no, I do have to have a width. So we'll just come in here with a width of auto. Nope, it does have to be 100%. Or actually, I believe if I put justify content as stretch, that should stretch the full width. It doesn't. So we'll just come in here. We'll do what I was doing before. Width of 100%. We need to get rid of the margin that is on our body. So we'll come in here with a margin of 0. So at least we can check, and that does look like it's the exact correct size. So at least I have that element in the correct place, just like I want it to. The next thing I need to do is I need to add in a p tag, and we're going to do a before element here. There we go. And then we're also going to have an after element. They're both going to be essentially identical. So I'm just going to put styles right here, essentially to be exactly the same. Our background is going to be white for both of these. Actually, the background is going to be this darker color. And then we're going to have a border. And this border is going to be, it looks to be quite large, maybe 25 pixels, solid, and it's going to be white. So we can just say white like that. Let's give these a specified width of, let's say 20 pixels. And of course, I need 2 colons here to make these actually show up on the page. They're still not showing up like I would expect them to. We need to give them a height as well. Let's say 20 pixels. Still nothing showing up. Let me see what I'm doing wrong. Well, for now, I'm going to remove, or not remove, but I'm just going to throw in a div and see if I can get this to work by using a div. So that does actually show up. So I'm not really sure why the before and after tags. Oh, of course, I need a content property with before and after. That'll actually make them show up. There we go. But honestly, it's probably just going to be better to have multiple different divs. So we got our p tag in there for the before and the after. We have our background, we have our border. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have multiple different tags though. So we're going to have a p tag here. And we're going to have another p tag. And instead, actually, I can make this one like an anchor tag, for example. And I can make this one, I think B is a tag that we can use for bold, but I don't really care. I just know it's a 1-letter tag that I can use. So we can have B and we can have A, just like that. We can give them a border radius. And that's going to be 100%. There we go. And it looks like it's giving me not quite the correct shape. For some reason, something with my content is incorrect. So the height and width are both the same size, border is the same size. Let's just change this to like 99 pixels. We'll change it to like 999 pixels. Still is looking very pill-shaped for some reason. Even though my height and width are both 20 pixels. Oh, maybe it's this justify content stretch. Let's remove that. Still doesn't make much difference. Very strange, very strange. Background color. All right, for now, let's not worry too much about that. We'll just get them positioned in the right location. It's probably actually because they're flex shrinking. That's what it is. Okay, that's 100% what it is. Yeah, so we'll just change this to grow. Flex grow 1. There we go. That's not actually less characters than the width. So we'll say width 100%, back to what it was before. These two elements we essentially want to have in the dead center so we can like position them. Absolute. Left 50%, and we could say translate negative 50%. There we go. That's pretty much going to have them dead centered. Let's make them quite a bit bigger. The center section, we'll say like 40 by 40. And then for this border, we'll say 40 as well. That actually appears to be about correct. The inside section looks like it needs to be 50 pixels though. So let's do 50 and 50, which means this would probably need to be 30. Oh no, actually 40 may have been correct. Yeah, so let me just try moving this over a little bit. We'll get rid of this translate. Ooh, that's almost actually in the correct place already, which is crazy. Let me change my mode here to be diffing mode, so it's a lot easier to see how far I need to move this thing. So let's say like I moved it, I don't know, 10 pixels. Oh, that's too far. Let's do negative 10 pixels. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that actually looks like it's in the right spot. It's just maybe a little bit too big. So let me change this to like 39, 38, and then change this to like 5, 4, 1. Okay, looks like it's still a little bit too big. We'll do 37, 36. Maybe a little bit too small now. 37. All right, that looks like it's dead perfect. So essentially, we don't need to worry about the translate at all. It's just in the right location. And what I can do is I can just change one of my tags. We'll just say the a tag here, and I can say that the right is going to be 50%. Does that put it in the right location? It does not. And let's do left 0. No, of course that's not in the right location. I was thinking about trying to move it essentially over into this exact same spot using the right side property instead of the left. What if I do left unset? Okay, so I believe if I just do a quick submit on this, we should hopefully have it being 100% correct, and then I can minimize down all of my CSS code. There we go. We scored 100% match. So at least everything is in the right location. Now I just need to make the code way, way, way smaller. So first thing that I can do is put every single thing onto one line. Let's see if we still need the margin. Of course, we need the margin for just that one section right there. That's kind of frustrating. And even if I increase the width of that, it's not going to make too much difference. So I probably just need the margin on there. I obviously don't need these display properties on this element. And instead, I could do that on my p tag here. I could just, for example, set top 50%. And let's just position this absolute. Now, maybe that is the best way to center everything, though, just because I need everything centered. And that's about the least amount of code I could do. I could maybe do margin auto, 0 auto. Because I need to make this a height of 100 VH. Even that's not working. So I think I'm just going to go back to what I had here. This is probably the best way to keep everything centered. Definitely need to have my width, or the height, the width. I'm trying to think if there's a way I can make that smaller to make it just fill the entire space no matter what. Come down to here. I can definitely clean up this code quite a bit. I think, obviously, I don't need content anymore. Height and width both being 50 pixels. This border radius, I can probably find a way to clean that up by just putting it in the border. Oh, actually, I don't think you can put it in border, unfortunately, because border just doesn't work that way. So we'll say, I think I can leave off solid because that's the default. Nope, can't leave that off either. All right, so we'll come back here with our border radius. We'll just do whatever, 99 pixels. That's because I can't get away with, for example, 9 pixels. So I need to do at least 2-digit pixels. And that's essentially the same as doing 100%. It's the same number of characters. Okay. I really don't like having to do the left unset on this. I wonder if it'd be shorter just to do, oh, no, it wouldn't be. Okay. Yeah, I'll say, actually, yeah, it would be shorter. So I can come into here with the B and say left 50%, remove that line from there. That gives me the exact same code. So now we can work on drastically minimizing this. For example, I don't need a semicolon after the last property. Whoops. There we go. Get rid of all these spaces. Get rid of these spaces as well. I think I can actually get rid of the bottom style tag here, and that should still render out perfectly fine. If you remove the last tag on a lot of things, they still work. It just kind of nests them inside of each other, so I don't want to nest those ones. What if I can get rid of that? Now it's going to move those down as well. Interesting. I was just trying to think if there's a way that I could clean some of this up. So this height property, I could potentially, oh no, but then the width, yeah, I could maybe do BA and then get rid of the height here. I need to put my closing P tag back in, so I'd still have all that working. So essentially I'm just using that to get the height property. Unfortunately, the background needs to change. This background is different than the background that I have up here. I wonder if I did my P tag using borders though, if I could possibly save some lines. So instead I could say I have a border that is 25 pixels, solid white, get rid of the height. That should be the exact same size element. It is. I do have some weird stuff going on with my eyeballs though. Oh, because they're no longer getting the height property from here. So I would need to say height 50 pixels in there. Okay, so then my border down here, I can just change it to be border width 37 pixels, just like that. Get rid of this entire line. That definitely saves some space. That's good. Okay. Still looks like everything is pretty much lined up in the exact right spot, so that's good. I don't like having this width and height having to be defined right on here. I'm trying to think if there's a way I can clean that up. Nothing that I can think of that comes to the top of my head. Do I need the position absolute? Yeah, I do need the position absolute. I wonder if I position everything absolutely, if that can give me some benefits for this display flex and inline and margin to be able to get rid of those completely. Because for this one, I could change like the left to 0, right to 0. That would make it the full width, but then I have issues obviously with the eyeballs being in the wrong location. All right, for now, I think I'm going to keep this code because it seems like the shortest way of doing things. So let's try to minimize what we have on the body here. And I'm trying to think if there's a smaller word I could use than body. I don't think so. Body is pretty much the smallest thing I can use to select that particular element. Move our style tag up, our B tag, A tag, so we have all those as short as possible. Let's get all these into place. Border, width, okay. Minimize all these down. There we go. Get rid of the last semicolon. So that at least is like the minimal amount of code based on what I have written right now. So let's see what score we can actually get to just based off this before I start doing some even more tweaking. Actually, it looks like I forgot a section here where I could potentially remove. Nope, I've already removed it. But I can remove the spaces at the start of all these different property names. This is where the code starts to become an absolute mess to look at, but it is hopefully going to be as small as humanly possible. Get rid of that, get rid of that. Get rid of that space there. Any other spaces? There's one there. One there, one there. It looks like that's pretty much every single space. So let's just submit that. We're at 630 right now, which is not great. I don't know. I haven't really done many of these style challenges, so I'm not sure how great of a score that is, but I don't think it's great. There's definitely ways I could probably do this more complicatedly to make it work better, but I want to try to do it with normal CSS stuff, just like taken to the extreme. So I'm going to look over this code real quick. I'm going to pause the video and see if I can think of anything. Okay, so in the brainstorming, I did think of a couple things. First of all, I could possibly use an outline instead of a border in specific scenarios to make things a little bit better. So here, instead of having a border of 25 pixels, let's change this to an outline of 25 pixels. I don't know if I need to specify solid on there. Let's see if I just, no, I do need to have the solid on there. Okay, and I believe it's still the correct size. Oh, but of course outline doesn't push the content and move it. And obviously I need this content to take up space. That's kind of what I'm using the outline for, or the border for. It's actually how I'm positioning my elements in the correct location. So maybe that isn't the ideal approach. Let's go back to using border. Another thing that I thought of is that these elements don't actually need to be positioned absolute, these two circles in the middle, because essentially they're just touching each other. I just need to have them be centered in this screen, and then they don't even need to be absolutely positioned at all. They just need to be centered inside of the screen. So one thing that I could do to make this centering a little bit easier is I could use a display of grid, And then I could use the place content, or actually I believe it's place items center. And that is going to center both horizontally and vertically, which will actually help me because I can remove the left and right properties from here and remove the position absolute. And then of course I need to make sure, oh, but of course, they're in different rows. I wonder if actually nesting them inside of each other would help. No, of course that wouldn't help. But if I put them inside of their own container, like we're going to use an I tag here, and then I'm going to use that on the other end of these to see if that would possibly do what I want. I'm going to add the closing B tag in there. That didn't make any difference. I'm trying to think of exactly what's wrong here, because I should hopefully put the content. Oh, but of course they're all in the same, or they're not overlapping each other like I want them to. So we're going to remove that. We're going to remove that. So they're stacking vertically, which makes sense. I essentially want the two eyeballs to be stacked next to each other instead of vertically, and I would need to use like grid template rows for that, which probably is going to eliminate any of the gains that I would get. And if I do this inside of, we'll just use a div for now, that at least would allow me to put them both on the exact same line, but now they're being crunched down, and I'm not 100% sure why they're being crunched down like that. Because you can see they're shrinking in size. They have some type of shrinking property being applied. So I'm going to remove that back to what we had before. There we go. And I think this grid was probably just the wrong option. So we'll use flex, and we will use align items to center them, and we'll use justify content in the center. That'll hopefully center our elements. And of course, right now, my P tag, I think I want to have be positioned absolutely. So we'll just come in here. I'll put this down on its own line before I clean it all up. Position absolute. There we go. That at least puts it behind it. My B and A tag, I would need to have a Z index on to make them actually show up above or their own position. Because I think if I just do a Z index of like 10, that's, oh, that does actually work. Okay, so we'll do a Z index of 1 right there. And then I can remove quite a few things from the B and A. They need their width, they need the border radius. Okay, let's go ahead and we're just going to try to submit this to see if this is any shorter. I think it's actually longer, which is definitely not what I was going for, but we'll try to submit this and then see what we can do to try to clean it up a little bit more. Give that a second. We're at 630 now, so it definitely didn't do anything to help us out. It lowered our score. Now I'm actually kind of thinking if I go back to when I was using a display of grid with the contents in the center, so I had place items in the center to get everything perfectly centered, I at least have my P tag in the correct section because that's being positioned absolutely. And all I need to do is get the eyeballs to be appearing next to each other instead of stacked on top of each other. So I think if I do a div now and I wrap them in it, let's see if that actually cleans that up. And we'll actually close off the B tag in case that was causing a problem. That does not seem to fix it. I'm not 100% sure why that is. Maybe if I give this a width of 100%, that still doesn't clean it up. What about on my elements? They are having a width of 100%, which I can actually remove. Nope, I need to keep that. Let's see, the Z index, I believe I need to have that in place to make it work properly. So my B tag has a width and a height being set on it. It's got a background, a border width, border radius. That all seems 100% correct. I wonder if I can inspect the element to see what's going on. Okay, I was able to actually dive in a little bit, and I was able to realize display flex actually fixes that problem if I put it on my div element or whatever element I want to use. In that case, I'll just use the I element and I will add that on there. I'll say I display flex. And that does fix that potential problem. So let's see if I can get rid of the Z index. Unfortunately, I cannot get rid of the Z index. So we'll have to keep that because I have to keep the Z index, which is a little bit sucky. This width 100%, I do need to keep that to get my P element to be as wide as possible because I'm using position absolute for that element. If I remove the position absolute, things aren't going to work because they're essentially trying to be stacked on top of each other. Border radius, I definitely need that. I need these multiple widths here. So I have a border width of 37 pixels here, and I have, 25 pixels on there. I don't think there's any way for me to be able to reduce those elements to make them the same exact size, because if I remove this, yeah, they shrink down quite a bit, which is definitely not what I want. Background, we definitely need. Height and width, we definitely need to have. If I remove these, yeah, they essentially just disappear completely. That's for that middle circle section that I have. I don't know if there's a way to make that any smaller. If I used border potentially, actually, I could change my border color to be this color here. There we go. That gives me those center circles, but they're much too large, unfortunately. I was thinking with a 25, oh, because I have my border width still being defined. There we go. So now they're the correct size, and now I can try using outline instead. So we'll come in here with an outline, which would be 37 pixels solid white. Oh, but again, even if I put that in there correctly, they're going to overlap each other, which is definitely not what I want. So that's actually going to add extra characters. So let's remove all of that, go back to what we had before. There we go. I'm going to try submitting this, but I still think it's actually more code than I had the original time at 634. Yeah, it looks like I got the same exact score of 630. I wonder if I can remove this closing P tag and instead put it inside of my I tag. No, that's causing a lot of problems. Put it down at the end here. No, that's still causing lots of problems. So I do need that closing tag on the P. We have our style with no close, which is good. Our body element is being selected here, and it's got, oh, we had a space there. So at least we removed one space. That's something. Got the background on that. I don't know if there's any other shorter way to define a background color on something, unfortunately. We got our margin of 0, which, do we still need that? Okay, we can get rid of that because of the way we positioned absolutely. We don't need to worry about the margin, which is great. Display grid, place items center. And the reason we're centering it is because we need everything essentially in the center. That makes sense. Border, I can't remove the space there, obviously. Solid white. I wish there was a way to more concretely make this border a smaller element in itself. I could create a brand new circle that is essentially bigger, but I think that'll add a lot more characters. I don't like that I have to add this z-index property here, purely because I have position absolute, which defines a stacking context, which means it's above an element that doesn't have any z-index applied on it. That's a bit of a bummer, but I can't think of any way to get around that, because even if I move my p tag after everything, it shows up in the wrong place and it still shows up over top of everything because of that position absolute aspect of it. I wonder if there's an easier way to get rid of that display flex to make it actually fill the width that I want it to fill. Because I have a hard-coded width and height, but for some reason it's shrinking down when I put it inside of that I tag or whatever element inside of here. What if I specify a width of like 50 pixels? No, that doesn't do anything. Display flex is the only thing that's working in this particular case. Actually, I think it might be height is the reason that I'm not getting this to work. So if I said like 100 pixels, no. No, that's still not working. I would even need to define maybe a width to make it work, but yeah, definitely display flex was the correct way to go here. Okay, let's try submitting this to see if we at least got our score down a little bit, because I believe we removed some things from here, but man, this one is really actually much harder than I thought it was going to be. Okay, our score is still worse than our best. I think we have a few more spaces we can at least still get rid of. So like, for example, here, there's an extra space that we were able to get rid of. And I'm guessing there's space here. I can just see it right away. So that's at least 2 spaces. This does not have a space. We need that. We need the border radius, which sucks because that's a lot of characters just to make a circle, essentially. Same thing here. Like this whole section, I want to be able to refactor to make it smaller, but I can't think of a good way to do that because border width is definitely smaller than redefining the entire border itself. And unfortunately, you can't put border radius inside of the shorthand for defining a border. Width and height, I can't use like a size property. I don't believe there's anything like that in CSS. Yeah, there's nothing that works like that, unfortunately. Width 50 pixels, height 50 pixels. If I remove the width, it's not going to work. Yeah, an aspect ratio is going to be a much smaller or much longer word-wise to be able to fit in that space. I guess one minor optimization that I can do is I can replace white with FFF. That's technically 1 character shorter, so I'm saving a little bit of space there. We'll try submitting this. I've removed a few spaces and a few characters, but I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to beat this score by maybe like 1 point. Yeah, it looks like I essentially tied my high score or maybe beat it by a little bit. One thing I just thought of that can actually save us quite a few characters is I believe I can get rid of the pixel denotion on a lot of these different values because it just defaults to pixels. Okay, this one of course doesn't default to pixels, but the really nice thing here, I can use 50%, which is technically 1 less character, so that's great. With 100%, do I still need that? Okay, yeah, I need that because that's for this particular element here. I'm trying to think if there's a way I could get that with doing pixels. I wonder if, for example, 100, like 999. Yeah, there we go. So that's technically shorter character-wise by 1 character. Anything else that I'm using that particular type of notation that I could save a few characters on? It doesn't look like it. I'm going to try submitting that. That'll at least save us a few characters. We maybe get down to like 250, which is not terrible. Let's see here, we're at 248 characters. One thing I think we can actually play around with is going back to using flex instead. So I can remove this I tag here, Instead of this, I'll have a display of flex. I will have my align items in the center, justify content in the center, and that should give us hopefully less characters overall than what we had before. I'm going to try submitting that. I don't know if it's 100% less characters, but it just seems like it should be. So we're at 248 as our current low score, and actually that increased our character count, it looks like. So not quite what we wanted. That's unfortunate. I wonder if we could use auto margins to center things instead, so I can remove all the centering related information here, and instead on all of my different elements here, I could say margin auto. Not quite what I want. I would need a wrapper container for that again to do the same exact thing. So let's try. I would need to wrap everything in a wrapper container. So I wonder if I put this on the HTML and then, oh, but I need to have, yeah, the flex would be my body. So let's try to put an I tag right here, and then we'll say I, and then what we're going to do on this is we're going to say margin auto. No, that doesn't do what I want it to do. I was thinking because you can auto margin things inside of a flex container to center them, but that's not. Oh, I think I actually saw part of what my problem was. Let me go back. My I tag was closing itself. I don't want that to close. Margin auto. Okay, that technically centers things. I believe maybe the reason this is doing issues. There we go. We'll do a P tag there. I don't want this closing P tag. Nope, that is definitely not what I'm expecting to happen. Oh, this does need to close. Okay. That does get my eyeballs in the center. I was thinking, yeah, they're shrinking down is what's happening right now when I have that margin auto. It's like condensing them as much as humanly possible. I wonder if I set this to like flex basis. No. Essentially, I want them not to shrink, so I would need to set like a flex shrink of 0. Even that's not doing what I expect it to do. Maybe it's because this, oh, it's because the I tag is the one that's technically wrapping them. So this is the one that needs to have like a flex shrink of 0. Even that's not working as I expect it to. Okay, so that is not what I was looking for. Let's go back to what we had before. Get rid of all of the I tags, the P tags. And the margin auto, yep. Put in the align items and the justify content center, because I think I need both of these. Yeah, that is how I center those. And then this align items is how I center them vertically. You know what? I think this is probably about as low as I'm going to be able to get it. Right now it says 252. I'd have to go back a little bit further to get to where we had 248. Here we go. This is where I had 248. There we go. So this is essentially the final working version that I had. I think if I were to go back and start this from scratch, what I would maybe do is just position everything absolute, not worry about all this grid flexbox related stuff, and just start everything by positioning it absolutely, because we can generally get smaller amounts of character numbers doing that. And I can share my width and height between things, so that would maybe help me a little bit. But overall, I don't think with the technique that I'm using currently, I can get it too much lower than 248. I could maybe get it down to like 230 if I were to rechange everything to do position absolute. But even then, I'm not sure if it would actually save me any characters. Yikes, that was rough and difficult, and I can tell that I've never tried to do this style of CSS programming before. But if you want to check out me solving other CSS battles much more successfully based on speed instead of based on the smallest character count, I'll link those videos right over here. I have videos where I do it solo and videos where I challenge other people, and they're both a lot of fun, so I highly recommend you check them out. With that said, thank you very much for watching and have a good day.